Welcome to the Clique podcast. I'm Dani Watson, a mindset and manifestation expert and founder of the Clique, a company that helps women overcome their fears and limiting beliefs to create a life and business that they love. Within this podcast, I will help you get clear on what you want, identify the blocks that are holding you back, transform your mindset and raise your vibration so that you can co-create magic with the universe. If you are looking to design a life that truly sets your soul on fire and manifest more success and abundance, then you are in the right place. Hello ladies, and welcome to a brand new episode. I had lots of amazing feedback when I launched the episode on the business Q&A, and I had lots of you dropping into my Instagram DMs saying, could I do another episode on business questions? So I posted on my stories, what are some of the business questions that you have about building a business, whether that's in coaching or something else, growing your business online. And I had lots of questions come in, but there was one question that came up that I thought this perhaps deserves its own episode. So the question is around sales. And the question is, how do you actually feel good about selling, especially when you're selling at a higher price? And tied in with that, how do you effectively price your coaching programs? Now, I'm going to relate this to coaching, but I guess this can really be applied to any service-based or even product-based business. How do you really price the things that you're selling? And then how do you actually feel good about selling them? Now, this is something I think deserves its own episode because I see it being one of the biggest challenges with women in the coaching space. Women, at least the women that we work with in our coach training, they come into this space because they really want to help people. And they are very good at showing up to practice their coaching and getting really good at delivering coaching sessions and being a great coach. However, a lot of the stumbling blocks start to happen when it comes to actually deciding, okay, I'm no longer going to be practicing my sessions, I'm now going to be charging for them. And this is something that we really encourage our students to do sooner rather than later. So when our members are going through our coach training, we actually say, look, rather than waiting until you are certified to start charging for your sessions, how about start charging for them sooner? So normally after about 4 weeks of practicing their coaching and going through the coach training, they're often in a position where they could start delivering one-off sessions. Now again, these people aren't yet certified. However, they've built up enough confidence and knowledge to be able to deliver a one-off session. And the reason we encourage women to start charging for their sessions whilst they're still in training, even if it's a small amount, doesn't need to be the big bucks. And let's face it, for somebody that's still in training, they're not going to be charging thousands for a one-off coaching session. So it may just be a small amount, £50 to £100 per session. However, what this does, it gets them into the energy of, I deserve to be paid for this. And this isn't just a hobby or something I'm playing at. I am actually a coach. I am actually getting paid for my services. And the sooner you can get into that mindset of, I deserve to be paid, when it comes to then charging the higher prices for your coaching, it's going to feel a lot more comfortable. So something we do, as I said, with our students, we encourage them to start charging quite early on. And this also allows us to see where the blocks and patterns of self-sabotage are going to come up when it comes to selling. And this is often where people need to have a lot of support on putting themselves out there, offering their services, selling their services, and actually be willing to ask for the sale on a call. So let's dive into this a little bit more, because something that I've recognized, at least with the women that we work with, they come into the coaching space because they really, really want to make a difference. They want to help people. They really want to give back to the world. And that desire to be of service takes precedent over the making money. So of course, making money is important. It's a business at the end of the day. Many of the women we work with want to be able to leave their job to be a coach. They want to be able to make money through their business. They want to be able to really create an abundant life for themselves. But taking precedent over that is being of service. Now, that's a great thing, and that's something that I always want to lead with personally, and I always want the women that I work with to lead with, that being of service. Because I know when you lead with good intentions, the money will naturally follow. However, the money is still important. And so sometimes when we're so focused on being of service, we often think that if we are taking money from somebody in order to be of service, then we are not being of service in the best way possible. And we sometimes make the assumption that actually the best way for me to be of service is to help everybody and help as many people as possible, and to do this without charging. Because if I don't charge, then I'm able to help more people, because more people are going to get access to my work. However, it doesn't necessarily work like that. First of all, and this is something that I learned a very hard lesson with early on in my business, is that often when people get something for free, they don't necessarily utilize it to its full advantage, or they don't perhaps see the full value in what you are offering. I gave away a lot of coaching for free or pretty much free when I was at the beginning of my journey. And what I found I was getting really frustrated with is the people that I'd been offering free coaching to were not necessarily utilizing it in the best possible way. Often they would cancel sessions, they wouldn't show up. I felt like I was doing more of the work and I was more invested in the process than what they were. And I now have this motto, if you drag somebody in, you drag them around. And sometimes giving something for free is a way to drag somebody into your coaching who's perhaps not fully committed to it. When somebody has paid to work with you, you know that they're going to be fully invested. They are going to be committed, and they're the ones that are going to get the most incredible results. So actually, you want to see the payment part, the transaction, that is a gift to those that you work with. Because what it means is that you are way more likely to have an incredible coaching experience with that client. They're much more likely to get results. They're much more likely to see the value in it and really commit to the process, rather than thinking, well, if I don't show up for this or I don't fully commit, I've not lost anything. I've not lost any money. So that money really puts them energetically in the game. And again, from my experience, when somebody is paid, the results always speak for themselves. Now, something else that was a real kind of aha moment for me was when I personally was investing in a coach, and I remembered how good that felt to be able to take ownership of my life and say, I am worthy of investing in myself. I'm excited for this experience. I know this coach is going to support me. I'm really happy to be able to hand my money over to this coach because I cannot wait to get started. Often we make all of these assumptions about what people are feeling when it comes to spending money. We often assume that that is a negative experience. But think back to perhaps in your own life. Where have you had an experience of investing in something and it's made you feel excited? So maybe it's coaching, maybe it's you've put the deposit down for an incredible trip that you're going to be going on. Or maybe you've had your eye on a beautiful handbag and you've finally gone to the shop and you've bought it. When have you had that experience of investing in yourself for your own personal joy and satisfaction, and that has felt like a wonderful experience? So let's take the holiday, for example. Have you ever booked an incredible trip and then you've got really frustrated and upset because you've had to pay the travel company the money for your holiday? Probably not, because you're so focused on the trip that's coming up. You're so excited about the fact it's finally booked and you can start packing your bags and you can start getting excited. Start to realize that that's exactly what your potential clients are thinking about you. The moment that they make that investment, all of a sudden they're not dithering over the decision about whether or not to invest, or should I or shouldn't I not do this. All of a sudden they are thinking forwards into their future. The thing is, when somebody is indecisive about paying, so let's say, for example, you are in a conversation with a potential client and they are thinking about whether or not they're going to invest in you. The energy of indecisiveness, being in that should I or shouldn't I, weighing up the pros and cons, that's a heavy energy to be in. Often it can feel quite overwhelming. Often we are stuck in fear when we are making a decision on something. And often when we actually make that decision and just decide and say yes to something, it's like a weight is lifted off our shoulders. We no longer have to dwell in the energy of indecisiveness. We can just think to ourselves, okay, I've decided now, I can draw a line under the sand and I can put all of my focus and energy into what's ahead of me and what I've got to look forward to. And I, again, have experienced this where I over-agonized over something and it actually feels so liberating to finally say, yes, I am doing this. So that decision and when they hand over that money, again, we have to remember that this isn't always a negative thing. For somebody, it could be a huge relief to finally say yes to something. Now, something else that is also super relevant when it comes to feeling good about selling is looking at your own relationship with how you spend money. So often we make assumptions about people based upon what we are experiencing ourselves. So if you're somebody who is fearful about spending money, you're in that sort of hoarder mentality, perhaps you have decisions to make financially and you are overanalyzing or struggling to make a decision on something, struggling to commit to something. That energy that you're putting out there is going to be reflected back to you in what you experience in your reality. So remember, we are a magnet to the things that we are a vibrational match to. Our energy is magnetic. So let's say, for example, I am somebody who is thinking about making a big investment, purchasing something, and I'm telling myself, I can't make this purchase. I'm over-agonizing the decision. I'm thinking, okay, well, if I make this, I'm going to lose money. I'm going to feel guilty for spending this kind of money. If I'm in that kind of energy, that's the energy I'm putting out into the world, and that's the kind of energy I'm going to receive back. And I know this personally because it took for me to do a lot of work around my own money mindset to start to see a big shift in terms of who I was attracting into my own life. So I really found the money mindset work quite early on in my entrepreneurial journey, and I felt that was a huge missing piece from, let's say, my first month as trying to sell my coaching versus my third month trying to sell my coaching. My first month, I could barely make anything and I was severely undercharging for my services. My third month, I had done a lot of work on money mindset work. I really felt confident about charging higher prices, charging my worth, recognizing my worth. And I found that I was attracting the people who were excited to make an investment. What was the difference between months 1 and 3? It was my relationship, my own relationship with money. So I started to really recognize where I had a pattern of guilt around spending. And I had to release a lot of that guilt. So for some of you who have been, following my journey for a while, you'll know that stepping into my business, I had a lot of credit card debt. I had been very financially irresponsible, where I had been using online shopping as a way to suppress my emotions, avoid what I was feeling. And as a result, I'd accumulated a lot of debt on a credit card. So then when it came to spending money and making investments within my business, I had a lot of guilt and shame tied in with that credit card debt, where I felt I can't be responsible for making big decisions like this. And therefore, I can't invest in myself. Look at what's happened previously. I can't be trusted with money. So I had to do a lot of work around that self-talk I had around money, because I recognized that being in that energy was attracting the same kind of people into my life. So I found that the people that I was connecting with on sales calls were equally struggling to trust themselves to make a decision financially. Perhaps they'd had bad experiences with money. They'd been in a lot of debt. They didn't feel empowered around money. And therefore, I was struggling to actually make any sales within my business. So for me, a big sort of shift was recognizing that, well, first of all, it was releasing myself of the shame and the guilt I had around the credit card debt. For me, that looked like a lot of forgiveness work. I had to really forgive myself. I had to stop blaming myself for my financial situation. I had to take ownership of my financial situation, but rather than, dwelling on how bad I had been with money previously, I started to adopt a new narrative, a new mantra for myself. Like, I am empowered around money. I am able to make great financial decisions. I don't hoard on to my money. I am putting my money into things that will help my money grow later down the line. And this was allowing me to then make better financial decisions for my business. It made me feel more comfortable investing in myself because I started to change that narrative I had around money. And the knock-on effect was that my energy changing around money, it was reflected in the type of people who I was attracting. The people that were financially empowered, the people that were able to make decisions about investing in themselves. Now, the other thing that really helped me feel good about selling was to really think about what it was that I was actually selling and actually really break down that correlation between time and money. So up until this point, I've been very much attached to this, how much is my time worth? And I think many of us, when we're a product of the corporate world, will have this same mentality because you get paid for the time you're spending in the office. You have your certain hours and you're getting paid a salary, and we can basically work out what our rate is per hour. I'd see this as well in the legal world because lawyers would charge per hour. They would have their rates, their hourly rate. And so that was kind of a good idea of what their time was worth. So it's very much this time for money equation. However, something I started to recognize was that when somebody invests in a coach, they're not necessarily investing in your time. And I had to start to realize that it's not my time that it is valuable, but it is the transformation that I can provide. That is the most valuable thing. And sometimes the biggest transformations can actually take the shortest amount of time. Breaking the time for money exchange was a real big one for me because, again, I kept looking at it as, okay, well, if I'm charging this much, it means I'm charging that much per hour. And can I really charge that because I'm relatively new to the industry and maybe I have to work up to those kinds of rates, and will somebody really pay that much for just a 1 hour session? And it was really weighing me down, and I had to really kind of take a step back and think, well, actually, when somebody is investing in a coach, what is it that they're spending their money on? It's not just to have that coaching call with me, it's the transformation. That's ultimately what we are selling. So rather than thinking, what is my time worth? It was thinking about, what is that transformation worth? And so thinking about that transformation, and not just, okay, this is the transformation for the 3 months we're going to work together. It's thinking about the ripple effect of that transformation. Because here's what I realized to be true. When you work with a client, yes, there's lots that will happen in the time that you spend together coaching that client. But often, the big leaps and the big transformations are going to be things that happen perhaps 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line. It's that butterfly effect, that ripple effect of coaching, where you working together, that starts to plant the seed and starts to really break through some of those blocks. And then as they start showing up in the world, as their new, more confident, more empowered self, they have all of these tools behind them, that's when they're going to see the knock-on effects of the work that you've done together. And it's those long-term ripple effects, they're the kinds of transformations that your clients are really paying you for, not for your time. And in fact, actually, the quicker you can create those transformations, the better. So take this as an example. Let's say you have somebody and they're wanting to make their first £10,000 within their business. Would they rather work with a coach over a 6-week period to get to that goal? Or if they had an option of taking a magic pill and they could get to that goal tomorrow, which would be the most valuable? It would be the magic pill. People don't want things to take a long time. Therefore, stop assuming that something that is more of your time is more valuable. If you can get to a client, to a transformation in a shorter space of time, that is actually going to be a lot more valuable than just giving somebody your time for the sake of it. And again, this is a big mistake that I've made, because I, again, recognized quite early on in my journey that I was trying to overcompensate for what I was charging by trying to give as much of my time as possible and as much information as possible. And I realized that that's not, again, what people were paying me for. They were paying for the transformation. And I realized that some of the transformations I could help clients achieve very, very quickly. They didn't need all of these additional sessions or all of these additional tools or resources or knowledge. Sometimes the most powerful transformations can actually happen in just one session. There's some of the techniques and tools that I use, some of the things that we train our students in when we train our coaches. These are things, very powerful things that can be used in just one session. And that can override years and years of conditioning, can help somebody break through blocks that, we've had people that have worked with our students that have been in therapy for years, paying a therapist for a session over, 2 or 3 years. And the kinds of results and transformations that they've got working with one of our coaches has been happened in, just 1 or 2 sessions. So again, it's not the time that is valuable, it is the transformation. That's what somebody is paying you for. So when it comes to pricing your services, for example, you want to think about, well, what is my time worth per hour? That's not the conversation you want to be having with yourself. It's, what is this transformation worth? And for many people, they'll say it's priceless. I'm willing to pay whatever it takes. I'm willing to make mountains move. And again, when it comes to having these conversations about price, don't assume that somebody feels bad about having to spend money to solve this problem. Because for most people, if it's a major life problem that they are struggling with, that's affecting their life on a day-to-day basis, they will make mountains move to solve that problem. And they will be willing to invest. And they will be excited to invest, because they're finally having an opportunity to free themselves of this problem once and for all. Again, I think back to my own experiences when hiring people, and I'm like, yes, I cannot wait to just take this weight off my shoulders and just say, look, here, take my money. You are the expert here. Support me, guide me, show me what I need to do, help me get to this place, help me solve this problem. It feels so freeing, so liberating to be able to do this. I felt it as well when I've invested in team members. There was this time in my business when I did all of the coaching calls, and I love taking coaching calls, but it got to a point where I was exhausted because I was doing so many calls, so many discovery calls as well. And so when I brought on team members, it was like, yes, I can't wait to be able to pay somebody else to do this. So it takes this weight off my shoulders. It felt liberating. It wasn't, oh my goodness, I have to invest in this person and, I'm losing money, I'm spending money, and I feel heavy about this. It was a freeing and liberating experience. So you want to be able to think about that energy, tap into it for yourself, but then also make the assumption that the person that you're connecting with, whether that's, selling your program, selling something else, getting onto a discovery call, a sales call, they're in that energy as well. And the final thing, and I think this is something that has cropped up a number of times through this episode, is just take a step back and think about, what assumptions am I making? Am I assuming the worst, or am I expecting the best? When it comes to, let's say you're having a call with somebody, you've got a call booked with somebody who's reached out to inquire about your coaching. What assumptions are you automatically making about that person? Are you assuming that they don't have the money? Are you assuming that this is going to be a hard, difficult financial decision for them? Maybe you know something about this person, and that's causing you to make certain assumptions. And maybe you know what career they're in, and you're thinking, well, they don't get paid very well, therefore they're not going to be able to afford this. Often, the assumptions we make can actually really hold us back from feeling good about selling, because we feel like this is going to be a burden for somebody. But let's say we flip to the script and assume the best rather than assuming the worst. Money can come from multiple sources. So maybe somebody perhaps they're not in a job, perhaps they're not employed. Maybe they're in a low-paid job and you're thinking, well, they're never going to be able to afford my services. But actually, maybe they have, an inheritance. Maybe somebody has gifted them the money. Maybe they've been able to get financing for the investment that they're going to make. When somebody wants something, they'll often be willing to move mountains to make that happen. And sometimes, there's opportunities available to them that we may not be even aware of. Now, there's a final thing that I want to share on pricing your services. And I want to finish then on a little tip, a little strategy that you can use to help you feel good about selling. But coming to pricing is very much a personal decision. So we can be very much influenced by what other people are charging and what this coach charges versus what that coach charges. And okay, I'm quite new to this. What can I charge because I've only been doing this for a certain amount of time? Again, coming back to what people are actually paying you for. It's the transformation. So you might be a relatively new coach, but you could be very, very confident in your abilities to help a client create a certain transformation in their life. So, for example, the students that we work with, we're equipping them with that confidence because they're getting a proven framework for how to coach. They're accessing tools and techniques that have been tried and tested multiple times and we know get results. So their confidence levels are often going to be quite high, and this then helps them to be able to really charge their services and charge their worth. So again, it's not necessarily how long have I been in the industry for, how experienced I am. It's often, well, how confident am I? You could have somebody that's been in the industry for years, but perhaps has never got any formal training, are doubting themselves, second-guessing themselves. They're not necessarily getting clients' results, therefore that knocks their confidence. So again, it's all about the confidence that you have in your abilities to get results, but then equally recognizing that you're not the only person responsible for your clients' results, and they have to show up and do the work as well. And I think this is an important reminder, because sometimes when we get paid for our services, we take on the entire responsibility of the coaching-client relationship. We're only half of the puzzle here. We can facilitate the sessions, we can hold space for our clients, we can ask the right questions, we can provide them with incredible exercises and rituals and things that they can integrate. But ultimately, the client has to show up and play their role as well. So don't feel the weight of responsibility just because you've taken somebody's money, because actually the fact that somebody has invested means that they are more likely to show up and play their part. You're more likely to get results by working together because they are showing up. But as I was saying, don't allow what other people are charging to influence you. I normally recommend to play around with your sweet spot, your pricing sweet spot, which is the tipping point where it feels really exciting, like I would be really happy to receive that for my services, versus this is starting to feel a little bit scary and unbelievable and out of reach. It's that sweet spot where excitement almost tips over into fear. Okay, you don't want to be too much in the fear side where it feels so out of reach that you struggle to believe that anybody would pay you that amount. If I was to go out tomorrow and say I'm charging £1 million for my service, I could go and do that, but energetically that's not going to be a match for me, because there's no way where I am at this point in my journey I would ever believe anybody would pay me £1 million for a 1-hour coaching session with me. Maybe somebody would, but I don't personally believe that, at least not right now. And so for me, that would be energetically out of alignment. So it's about finding your sweet spot where excitement meets fear. You can, of course, do market research, but again, what somebody else is feeling energetically, you've no idea. It's really about what you are feeling energetically, what feels good to you. And that's really what it comes down to. The practicalities of what that works out to per hour, that's something actually that's less relevant than how does this feel? How good does this feel? And this is where we're really giving our intuition credit, our feminine wisdom credit, because the masculine side, the overthinking side, it wants to weigh up the pros and cons. It wants to think about logical reasons as to why we should charge what we charge. Whereas our feminine wisdom knows intuitively what we should be charging. And we can tap into this by feeling into our body. So play around with it and allow your body to give you clues rather than the logical monkey mind telling you that's too much, nobody will pay that. You should go and do some more market research. What are they charging? That logical mind is going to keep you feeling overwhelmed, second guessing yourself, and probably making the wrong decision. So tapping into that feminine wisdom, allow your body to guide you, knows exactly the answer here. Okay? Now, practical little thing that you can do as well. Visualization. You've probably all been doing this for visualizing your dreams, the goals that you have, your dream home, travel that you want to do. Wonderful. We can also do visualization for our dream clients. The dream clients who have the money to invest, that are excited to invest, that have been waiting for a coach like you to show up in their life that they can hand over their money to. They're going to be so relieved when they finally connect with you on the call. You tell them how much your coaching is and they say, yes, I'm ready to do this. I'm excited to go. We can start to visualize this. So start to play out that scenario, either on your head, or you could even create a vision board around this. Create a vision board about your ideal client. What does she look like? What is her financial situation? So we can start to expect and anticipate the best rather than assuming the worst. And bring yourself back to that vision before you get on a coaching call, before you get on a discovery call rather, with a potential client. Start to visualize and assume the best case scenario. What do you want to play out on that call? What do you want their reality to be when it comes to their finances? That's going to help you feel much more empowered around selling and to make it feel like a much more exciting experience. Okay? So I really hope that this episode was useful. And yes, I think it definitely deserved its own episode. But I love, again, hearing your recommendations for the show. So please reach out to me on Instagram, Dani_Watson_coaching. Let me know what other topics you would like me to see covered. Have a wonderful rest of your week, ladies, and I will catch you again on the next episode. Bye, ladies. If you are wanting to build your own successful online coaching business, make sure to check out Freedom, Abundance and Impact, our free 10-day business and mindset course for coaches and aspiring coaches. To access, simply head to wearetheclique.com and click free course in the menu.